That's right. For this week's main topic, we're getting back into one of our favorite series because if you know that there are cool things in the parks that many people know about, many people don't, but they do affect each and every visit. And this week's one, they can be very subtle, but they bring along a lot of nostalgia. Michelle, what are we talking about this week?
Well, we're talking about the sounds that help bring the parks alive.
Yes, that's right. Those little subtle and maybe not so subtle sounds that make your trip, whether you know it or whether you don't. But if you know, they are fantastic no matter how you approach it. So, Michelle, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I think you kind of queued it up really nicely there. There are sounds that we're going to talk about that you hear them and instantly you feel something. It's not your imagination. We all get it. You know, like the train whistle blowing or that click and swooshing, sweeping sound of the monorail doors opening, or that iconic 1920-esque tunes of Tinseltown just as you enter Disney Hollywood Studios. These aren't just sounds, they're like core memories. And you know that because every time you hear them, you instantly get those feels. In fact, I don't know if you've ever noticed, I have, that you actually, when you're entering and you're hearing some of these sounds, you kind of pause for a second and just notice your surroundings and think, wow, yeah, I'm finally here again, you know? And even if you're a frequent park goer, that initial entrance emotion sparked by those iconic sounds really come to life.
Right. I mean, there's some obvious things, or maybe not so obvious things, like the soundtrack loops that you get in the various lands that help bring that ambiance around. And yes, those exist. But I think we're talking about more subtle sounds that happen, whether they're planned by Disney or not planned. I think really they're all planned by Disney. But various things that kind of happen throughout the parks that just spark that little joy in us, or remind us, hey, you're in the parks, and they'll make you smile a little bit, or think, or maybe even have a little fear, or whatever it might be, depending on what you got going on, Michelle.
Exactly. We're going to talk all about that. And, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that ambient sound or background music. We actually did a whole episode on background music back in episode 197. So that's something, you know, if you haven't listened in the past, you might want to check that out. And there are some background sound musics that really help set the stage or the mood, you know, and you know, we probably won't go into a lot of that, but they are important sounds that are supporting the role of the story that is being told there. But it doesn't stop there. Take, for example, on Main Street, USA. Yes, you have that music, as we said, but there's other layers of sound that, you know, really put you into that place at that moment. Like it's the old time motor sounds of the vehicles going down Main Street, USA, or that funny old horn blowing to get people to move out of the way, or even like the sound of the hoofs of the
clip-clop,
right, of the horses as they're driving that vehicle down or pulling that vehicle down Main Street, you know, and they have I think a clanging bell as their horn, and I just love them. It's just, you're so much immediately brought into that area, that era, that sound. Do you have some that you think about?
All those things. I love the clip-clop of the horse-drawn trolley car down Main Street, USA. Now, Walt Disney World, you get it very early in the mornings often. Sometimes you don't later in the day. They shut off the Main Street vehicles pretty early on. But Disneyland, they go a good portion of the day generally, unless it's like just super ridiculously crowded there. And you really get that feeling as you're going down Main Street, USA. I mean, yes, all those things you mentioned. The horn. Just asking people to kindly get out of their way. You know, it's a friendly horn.
Right.
It's not like
yeah.
Get out of the way. It's a friendly horn, just reminding you that there's a vehicle going down. That the clip-clop of the horse. Sometimes a ding of a bell. You know, I mean, there's just so many fun things that happen down Main Street, USA, and occasionally, I mean, I know it's kind of a part of it, but you know, like the Dapper Dans riding down on some of those vehicles and singing as they go down Main Street, USA as well. I mean, I think that's separate than what we're talking about, but it does add to that ambiance.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure if we had a ton of time, we could go through all the different lands or parks. But let's move on to seeing, it's really funny to me how much sound really impact emotions in the attractions and the rides. And as I was preparing for this, I was like, how am I going to cut this down? Because there's so many that are amazing. But, like in soaring around the world, that sound, that like the pressurized whooshing sound just as you're about to take off. And you're either feeling like transcended to this exciting experience, or maybe you're just trying to hold on tight and find your happy place, and then right on cue, there's that one kid screaming out, "Is this scary?" Respect,
That was me.
No, I'm the white knuckle in that attraction, but I love it. But there's also sounds that are like embedded into our memories. So, for example, like spiels from different attractions that you love them so very much that you can even recite them verbatim while there, or even but letting the sounds direct your mood, right? There's like in the Haunted Mansion, in the seance scene, for example, that one to me always gets me like, I'm all ears for that. Madame Leota, she's telling the spirits, asking for proof that they're there, like the ones, creepies and crawlies, toads in a pond, that there be music from regions beyond. And the one, wizards and witches, wherever you dwell, give us a hint by ringing a bell. All right. Now, when I read those, if you heard those sounds in your head, you know.
No question.
Do you have any favorite dialogue sounds that really capture your attention?
Well, I mean, like you're speaking of that, I think that if you're just going to talk about the Haunted Mansion, because it's probably my favorite classic attraction of all of them. I mean, we'll go to the stretching room and, the screech, as you see the skeleton up above, as they close it out before it opens it up and you head on towards the attraction. That's it. But even at the end, the hurry back, right. Is one of those things that, yes, I do want to hurry back. I do. I love that attraction so much. Every bit of it.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Are there other attraction sounds that really pop out to you as kind of favorites?
I'm going to talk about one at Disneyland that maybe doesn't happen. I don't believe it happens at Walt Disney World, at least not anymore. But at Disneyland on the Jungle Cruise, there's the spot where they try to kind of keep the hippos at bay and they fire the gun there. And you can hear that at different parts of the park. And that sound actually has... It's not just, effective for the attraction itself as you're on the ride. It's also effective to notify other boats that are on that attraction as to your spacing and where you are ahead and behind as they're trying to go through there. So
wow.
It's actually a part of the attraction. That's part of the reason why they fire that. And it can be a little triggering for some people, and I get that. But there is a reason why it's still there.
Wow, look at you dropping some fun facts there on this sound episode. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, the next set of sounds that I thought we'd go into are some real deep cuts, the real if you know core. And they're kind of like understated sounds that still build stories, still bring those emotions. And they're like part of the environment, So the one that really brings me back to that first time feel is over at the Canada Pavilion. Now, it really means a lot to me in memory of more my mom and visits to Epcot. There was never, I think, a visit to Epcot that we didn't go just to experience this. And that's that walkthrough spot kind of towards the back of the Canada Pavilion. And you're seeing the waterfall and that powerful roar that's coming from all that water coming down. It's just such an amazing experience. And it does remind me of the first time that I saw that, because at the time before, there was never anything comparable to that. And it was just so spectacular and amazing. And when I'm there, I feel that initial emotion again.
Yeah, and that's a spot that many people may not visit or notice. You may walk through the gardens, you may, see a little bit of the totems out
Mhm.
front of the Canada Pavilion. You may not walk back to that portion,
Right.
especially if you're not going to Canada far and wide and see that waterfall. But when you do see it, it's pretty darn impressive for sure.
Mm.
I'll go with all the water elements at these Disney parks, whether it be the water attractions themselves or whether it be the fountains. Just the sound, how soothing and wonderful the sounds of the fountains can be when you're getting to sit by them. When you have one nearby you, it's those are always something that I really, really enjoy. I'd love it when I can find a spot next to a fountain. That's for sure.
Exactly. And I'm going to bring something about that up in a
Oh,
little bit.
mm,
But the next deep cut sound is for me the Peter Pan flight. Sure, you could be checking your phone and catching all the fun, amazing, not to be missed things there, or you could ring shadow bells on the wall. I mean, those are incredible. I remember when we first went through this, and I'm talking about the queue at
mhm.
Walt Disney World. They've really put in a lot of different aspects of activities that you can do while you're in that queue. And I was blown away by that simple where you see these shadows of bells on the wall and you move your hand like in front of them and they start ringing.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. That's a cue. I mean, I think especially with that attraction, and we did have an episode where we talked about cues, and part of
Mhm,
it, I think we did bring up the that Peter Pan's flight as
mhm.
part of one of those cues. That's really, really special because of the fact that, yeah, I mean, one, that attraction, the queue is always super long for that attraction, which is always a
Right.
little weird, but that attraction is so beloved that you understand it a little bit. But then also, I mean, you have it's an attraction. Yes, adults love it, but I mean, it's really for the little ones. It's a
Mhm.
dark ride in Fantasyland. And could they get a little bored waiting in that long a queue? Absolutely, 100%. So give them some things to see and do. And those are experiences that they'll definitely remember and will bring them joy
Yeah.
from that. And us adults as well, of
Right.
course.
Yeah. And I like that it's creating new nostalgic sounds and experiences for kids now for later on. So I don't know. Have you ever noticed like that clunk sound in the Matterhorn just as your car's being placed
Mm.
on the track? I mean, it's subtle, but on your subconscious mind, you're like, oh, we're getting ready to go. I mean,
Mhm.
it just kind of sets that tone.
Yeah, that's there. When you were going through it, the sound of the wind going through the Matterhorn
Hmm.
caverns. Maybe you hear a little bit of the abominable snowman in the distance or whatever. But even before you actually are in the attraction itself, when you're just walking by the Matterhorn, the screams of joy and fear from and pain sometimes from those that are on the Matterhorn itself is just one of those. It's one of my favorites for sure. That since I'm a Disneyland person, as I'm walking by there, it's like, oh, there's the Matterhorn. Just
Right.
hearing those sounds when when the Matterhorn is going under refurbishment or whatever, and you don't hear that sound.
Right.
It is definitely a loss to me when you're in the parks. It's just something that you expect to hear and brings you back to many, many trips and makes you think, okay, am I ready to go through the chiropractic exam that is the Matterhorn? Or do you want to not do that again? But I do love that attraction and I do love those sounds.
Exactly. And the answer to that is yes, you
Yes.
do want to
Yes.
go on it. Do you contribute to those sounds when you're on that
Oh,
attraction?
100%. But
Yeah.
mine is a joy. Mine is not, so many people, I know they come off that and they're like, ouch, ouch, it hurts, it hurts.
Yeah.
And I can feel that a little bit, literally and figuratively. But I don't have as much pain as some people have, I think, going off that attraction. Maybe I'm just so used to it that I know
Right.
what to do now. So I don't have the shouts of pain as much as many people do, but I do definitely have the shouts of joy.
Oh yeah, when I'm riding through it, I don't think I think I'm very loud going through it with laughter, a fearish kind of laughter,
Oh,
but
when
just
Michelle's on it, the whole park knows that she's on the Matterhorn. That's for sure.
that and Big Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, my laugh, my fearing laugh, but just thrilled with the experience is definitely out there. But Anyways, another deep cut sound that I don't think a lot of people think about, but let's call it the seatbelt click chorus. And that's when everybody clicks into their seatbelt within 2 seconds of each other. It's like a perfectly timed orchestra, and it's hilarious. And I
You can
love
really
it.
get that on like Star Tours. 'Cause
Yes.
you know, everybody clicks in just about the same time and it's all going through, you know, and then the
Exact-
tug. And, you know,
Right.
tug on that.
Exactly. Now, honey, I know that you have a lot of connection of feels with Galaxy's Edge because of the sounds all around there. There's all those mechanical bangs and clanks and things. But um, for our listeners, I don't know if you've ever been there and like heard the roar of an aircraft flying and found yourself looking up thinking, something just flew by from Star Wars and then feeling a little ridiculous, but knowing that all those sounds are really pulling you into that storytelling.
It legitimately happened to us. Well, it's happened to us multiple times, but especially like on our very first couple trips to Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, after that had literally just opened. And in Southern California, we get like a marine layer where they get these low-lying clouds sometimes that are over for a good portion of the day, sometimes the entire day before they burn away. And then with those low clouds and this sound above your head, it makes you wonder, is there really a TIE fighter that just flew over me or an X-Wing that just flew over me? Because it really does give you that impression. That's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely draws you into there for sure. So, all right. Well, we can't forget some eating locations like the quick service dining. Now, our favorite, especially when we have Scott, is going to the Columbia Harbor House. Compared to other quick service spots, this tends to be a little quieter. You can go upstairs and find a nice seat up there. And maybe you're there and you're not taking note of it, but next time you go, maybe you do, but your brain is taking note. There's that colonial style music playing in the background. And it gives you that experience that it's something more unique than just going into some fast food kind of restaurant.
Very Liberty Square. Totally fits in with that kind of feel. But yeah, a very New England-y feel to it. I do really enjoy that. Yeah, it adds to your dining experience. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. It makes it more unique. It elevates that. Similarly, over in the Japan Pavilion at Epcot, there is more of an outside area that has some nice sounds of natures. You know, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, so there's the Zen kind of garden. I mean, there's the area where they have a lot of trickling fountains and water elements and everything, and bamboo. Sometimes they even add to that with certain like musical instruments that will play during that are run by the water. But even if that's not going on, again, it's one of those peaceful locations that is very underrated, that you can often find a seat there, and it's often shady, and it's often a really nice place to take a respite during your middle, because it's pretty close to the middle of your trip around World Showcase, to kind of stop, maybe have some sushi or something to drink, just enjoy and take it in, and maybe cool down and absorb what's wonderful around you in the park.
Exactly. Very well said, babe. All right. There's also sounds that I call like off the beaten trail. And let's say that it's been a fairly busy morning or whatever, and you're ready to just sit down and take a break. And one of the areas that I like to at Disneyland is that you can often find like benches across from the It's a Small World area. And there are such a variety of sounds that are going on at that time. And, sometimes you feel like you're drifting towards listening to a particular sound and then rotating to another one. And maybe like the monorail goes overhead and you feel like, wow, that was great timing. You feel lucky that happened to you. And it's just this vehicle going by. I mean, it's really great when it honks his horn too, but it's one of those experiences that if it's just really special in a very off the beaten track, peaceful way.
Yeah, It's a Small World at Disneyland is so special to me. Whether you go in the attraction or you don't, just like you mentioned, just sitting out there or standing nearby, watching the queue, watching the boats coming around. Of course, you have the topiaries there, and then that beautiful facade. And then every 15 minutes, the clock goes off, and then you get the little parade of
That's
some of the
right.
dolls outside, and a little music plays and everything. But yes, of course, all the music is outside, the people mingling around, and it's joyous. It absolutely is a joyous attraction, both outside and, of course, in.
Exactly. Now, one of the areas that I think a lot of people don't notice or take note of or even venture to, and that's off Main Street, USA, where they have the little alleyway. And you can hear not only the background sounds of Main Street, USA, but there's some very unique sounds put into place there that are very fun to listen to, whether it's the sound of a dentist or music lessons going on. It's very clever, it's very unique. And again, it brings you to that nostalgic feeling of being in like a turn of the century location.
Yeah, and it brings the buildings to life, makes them feel like they are legitimately run businesses that are going on throughout there, and sometimes in a very funny way. The dentist is very, very funny.
Yes.
The musical, yes, the music teacher as well. You get some funny sounds out of that as well. But it just brings some fun, subtle fun,
Right.
to the park that you may not have expected, but there it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I remember when I was pregnant that I needed at one point a stop to have. I was at the park by myself. I needed a quick bite, and I was kind of near the China Pavilion. I thought, okay, that's great. I can get a takeout quick service there, and I did. And when I came out, when I had my food, I was looking around and all the tables were full. And so I was trying to figure out where can I sit down because that was the whole purpose, sit down and have this bite to eat. And I went in the back of the China Pavilion trying to see by the stores, but there really wasn't a place for me to sit down. So I was coming back out to the front and by the main building. And I started walking and I saw a pathway, but it looked like it was a dead end. But then as I really started following it, I noticed, no, wait, it's actually a great little pathway. And I found a bench there that was right by this like babbling brook. And it was just so amazing of a find. And I really enjoyed myself. And ever since then, I make a decision to go by that area because it's just so wonderful.
Yeah, sometimes they have some character meet and greets by there, so it's maybe not be as easy to access unless you're meeting the characters. But when it's not, we spent many times eating a little quick service meal on that bench right by the koi ponds there, and it's really, really peaceful. You've got the whole temple there, the Chinese temple, looking at you. You have the water elements. Lots of plant life. It's beautiful. And another just similar to the Japanese pavilion, the Japan pavilion, very peaceful and place to get a little zen.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. It might become your next favorite little hideaway spot to stop at. Now, I was thinking as I was doing this episode preparation that actually you're the expert with, all your radio industry experiences and being very attuned to sound and things like that. So I was wondering if there are any sounds that are maybe more off the beaten path or more deep cut that you find enjoyable.
Well, I mean, I've discussed several of them already. I find the thrill screams from people to be fascinating and interesting and wonderful. I mean, Tower of Terror is one. Those doors open up and you hear the people scream as they come through.
Right.
Expedition Everest, the same thing. That car rips down and comes sliding through very, very quickly, and you hear people screaming as they come through there. Those sounds, I find thrill ride sounds fascinating to me because you get the fear, the joy, the laughter sometimes. I mean, it hits every emotion, and I find it fascinating. I find the lack of some sounds interesting because I remember, how it's intrinsic to going to Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, having the sound of the train whistle going through there. And you remember when they were building Tron, that we went a few years where at Magic Kingdom, there was no train whistle because the train was not running at all, not even like it is now. Now it's only going, because they're doing some construction, it's only going certain portions, but you still get that train whistle down there. And even when you're not near the park, the lack of the train whistle, you can feel it. There is something missing there. Not having that, it is part of your Disney vacation. Going to Disneyland, going to Magic Kingdom, going to Walt Disney World, and having that train whistle, it just brings you back to great times when you were a kid, all the way up to when you're an adult, whether you enjoy riding the train or not. It's just part of it. It's just part of it. Something that struck us, that is a huge memory for us now, was returning to Walt Disney World kind of during the middle of the pandemic. It had opened, Disneyland had not reopened. We went back and we were staying, we've talked about this in the past, staying at the Polynesian Resort. I think it was the first time we've ever stayed at the Polynesian Resort together since we got DVC membership and had spot there. And the only thing open at the Polynesian at that point were those DVC member areas. And we got a great spot overlooking the water. And because the parks were not open regular hours at that point, they were limited. They were not open super late. They weren't open super early. We would spend a lot of time sitting in our room and hearing the ferry boat whistle.
On our balcony.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even in our room. I know some people, like, when we stay there, like, that's annoying, especially too early in the morning. It starts way too early. I get it. But for us, I think because it brought us back after such a troubling time, and even we were still in the midst of it, but it was getting us back to the park and getting us back to those experiences. Hearing that whistle, that horn from the ferry boat, was very, very special for us, and still to this day is very, very special to us.
100%.
Hearing those opening notes from the electrical water pageant, same thing. Getting that during the pandemic, being out there and not having nighttime spectaculars go on, but the only nighttime sort of spectacular that was going on was the electrical water pageant. Just hearing those opening notes, it was something special, and it always has been. But even more so when that was going on, and the memories we have from that moved us forward. And now every time we hear it, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
Things like that are just, they're so special, and they bring back those nostalgic memories of some point in your life, or many, many points in your life, that call back to the parks. They're really special.
Agreed. Yeah. When you were just bringing up about the electrical parade at night, and I know that there's, more traditional kiss goodnight in the parks, but this one is that to me. It's like, yes, the day really is done, and it's being wrapped up in a bow and presented to you. And it's just full of life, and it's quirky. And if you look at how it's actually made, it is not high tech. And I love that. I love that about it. It's total nostalgia from the first time you ever went to Walt Disney World.
I hope it never goes away. I know it's something that not everybody appreciates, but I think those that do really, really love it so very much. Mm-hmm. I still remember talking about that first time, getting back and seeing it, and how so many people were out on their balconies and applauding it. Like, you get applause now, but I've never heard the roar so much for the electrical water pageant as they did during the pandemic, when, yes, there were not other nighttime spectaculars going on, and everybody was starved for a little bit more extra Disney entertainment during their vacations.
Exactly. Yes. Such memories.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, we've kind of been going through the parks during the day, but I think some of them, our most nostalgic sound feels do come at nighttime. We've just talked about some, and in the park, and obviously nighttime parades bring that nostalgia, and we love that. But I think the most powerful ones are the loudest ones. You know what I'm talking about here? The fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do have the accompanying music, but those booms, you can actually feel them a lot of times, and even if you're not in the park, you're watching them from a distance, like say you're over at the Contemporary or something, and it's still so loud, still so noticeable. I mean, that they don't need to pipe in that part of the show.
And it could be somewhere, if you're in many of the resorts where you can't even see them or just barely see them in the distance, you can still hear them and know, oh, I can hear they're going on. First, you're trying to decide if it's Florida. Is it thunder or
Right.
is this the actual the fireworks? Then you look at the clock. You're like, oh yeah, this is Magic Kingdom or this is Epcot or whatever, wherever they're having the nighttime spectaculars go on. And then if you do have a place where you can find a vantage point, you probably will walk out and see if you can see those. And but
Right.
just hearing that sound of some of the, especially like the finale, when
Right.
they're just really going. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
yeah.
Some of those memories for sure.
Right. And it's just one of those things, it's and sound associated that you do want to see over and over. Now, again, as I was preparing for this, I did go on the internet to kind of try to understand why this is such a draw. And obviously, because I went on the internet, it's accurate. But some of the things I read did make sense. For example, they were saying that sound of the boom, it is exhilarating, but it's also what we know as a safe sound. And so it has both of that feeling of excitement and yet comfort at the same time. And the other thing that I saw on there was that there is that lag between when you see the sparkling of the fireworks to where you hear the boom, and your subconscious is noticing that gap and giving you that sense of expectation, or anticipation, and I thought that was really cool. But the other thing that I read about this is that it is a communal experience for people. Everybody's there. You got that big crowd, and everybody is feeling the same kind of joy, same kind of nostalgia, the same excitement and thrill. And it's just cool to think that with perfect strangers, we are all kind of unified in that one moment with those sounds.
Mhm. And I think that's true of a lot of stuff in the park. I mean, I feel like some of my favorite sounds are, yes, of course, there's so many great sounds that we've been discussing when you're in the attractions, when it's walking through the park, whatever you might be. But just the sounds of like children playing or being excited because they see their favorite character there, or nighttime spectacular when Tinkerbell flies during Happily Ever After, and everybody cheers and weeps at the same time. Well, yes, me. Yeah, it's that as you mentioned, communal experience that just it just makes your day that much brighter.
Yeah,
Nights.
And it lets you realize you're in a very special place and one that you want to come back to. And speaking of that, some of the last sounds of the day in the parks, comes when the guests are shuffling out after these spectaculars have completed. The sound that we're talking about, the sound that you're just so tired, but you don't want to leave, and I don't know if you've been in that situation where you're going out at the very end. But it is, if you pay attention, there are some really unique sounds about that are coming a lot of times from the guests. It is the cadence of the footsteps, or people walking. It's so much slower than when you think about in the morning.
Think about rope drop and the cadence of the footsteps versus 9:59 at night, after the fireworks and a long full day, rope drop to fireworks at the park.
Exactly. I mean, even the sounds of people talking, it's more like quiet murmurs, it's just that kind of that bittersweet moment that you're leaving someplace that you've really enjoyed and love it. But at the same time, you're going to make your way back, that's what you want to do. And it's just such a unique sound at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agreed. It's completely different. Like I said, different feeling. Beginning of the day, the excitement, the energy, everybody's very enthusiastic. Towards the end of the day, when everybody's absolutely exhausted but still fulfilled and had so much joy during the day. And of course, there are those that are absolutely exhausted that maybe give a different sound. We've all heard that.
Yes.
We've all heard those tantrums.
Yes.
Some of us have been a part of those tantrums. But I mean, it's also a fulfilling, rewarding sound that you know you've had an amazing day
Exactly.
at a Disney park for sure.
Exactly. So before we close, are there any other sound or experiences that you want to bring up?
I want to talk about one more here because, you know, we all love the sound of the monorail, whether it be, you know, please stand clear of the doors, you know,
Right.
or as you already mentioned, the doors closing themselves or them going by overhead, you know, just the hearing that cool noise as well. But more recently, yes, I was blessed to be at the Princess Half Marathon, and a lot of it was spent out on the street. But a lot of that was during the monorail path, where the monorail was running regularly to and from Chicken and Transportation to Epcot and back. And one thing that the monorail pilots were doing a lot of was playing that horn for the runners as they were going along. And I always enjoyed the monorail horn, but it gave me a new appreciation for it, as inspiring that was, as you're on these long, exhausting trails of just highway, essentially. And yet here you every once in a while, the monorail would come by, and especially when it was still dark, all lit up,
Right.
and then the horn would blow, and everybody would cheer, and it just brought that pop of energy
Right.
that makes me appreciate it that much more.
Oh, cool. Glad you shared that. So, all right. Well, in closing, you know, I personally am always amazed at how these sounds can bring those emotions, take you back to other times that you've been to the parks and just instantly feel excited about where you're at. And I hope for you all listening that this audio scrapbook for your senses really sparked some fun emotions and maybe kind of bridge that gap until your next visit to the Disney parks. But anyways, that's kind of our summary of it. And we would definitely love to hear what sounds bring magic to you as you're at the parks.
Right, absolutely. I mean, we didn't play a lot of sounds during this, but I'm hoping that maybe a little figment is coming through and you're using your imagination as we're talking about these things, and you're hearing those sounds in your head, because if you know that they are very, very special. So yes, please share your favorite sounds. I know we touched on some, but there are so many more sounds that are so nostalgic to everybody and make your trips. We want to know what they are. We'll share them on upcoming episodes. Please hit us up. Gmail account, social media. We'll be happy to do so. Right, Michelle?
Exactly.
So that is our If You Know,
You know.
sounds that bring the Disney parks to life.